Note to self, if you're gonna dig holes from, I would say, February until about right now, which is early May, is the time to dig holes in the South, especially if you're dealing with that red clay, because things have been raining and the soil is soft and it's really not bad to dig. If you wait until July or August, number one, your bare root trees are gonna not make it. But number two, you're gonna be sweating literally to the oldies, because if you're anything like me, at that point, it's gonna be super hot outside. You're trying to juggle what you can do, what you can't do. Is it too late to do anything or not? Just another side note, if you do end up purchasing something because you waited and found it on sale and it was in a pot, it was a potted tree, you literally can plant that anytime as long as the ground is not frozen solid, at least in our area. I would encourage you to try and do planting from fall, so I would say probably October through the end of April. End of May is okay, but much later than that, you can still do it, but you're definitely gonna have to water them. But you also gotta think through juggling how are you gonna keep these plants alive in a pot. It's not as simple as you're just gonna kind of keep an eye on it, water it when you think about it, etc. Dean Family Acres. All right, guys, as we're trying to fight some fire ants out here today, we've got everything I think we need to do to get ready for the next adventure. So let's walk up this way to the upper orchard and see what we can figure out. All right, here we go, on our way. On our way. So we're gonna walk up here to the upper orchard. We've got a couple new additions coming, so we're gonna talk about this just a little bit and see exactly what we're gonna get into today. I only got a couple of hours, so this might be broken up into a couple different sections. But as many of you know, you do what you can and you just take your time and keep working at it. So let's see what we can come up with up here and have a quick discussion about what we're doing. Many of you might remember when we planted our Spalding pear right over here. It was episode 239, I do believe, if my research is correct. But I'll link that video up here. When we planted this, a lot of folks were kind of wondering, like, what do you do when this is right next to a fence line? Let's think through this. Well, that is part of our next phase of our orchard. And most people would think, why are you planting an orchard right next to a fence line? And if you know the problems we've had with squirrels, that might explain a few things. However, what we're gonna do is we're gonna eventually clear off some of these pines right behind us here. And so this is just slowly us working towards expanding this orchard to make yet another row behind the current apples that we have here, as well as some of the pears. So currently we have space for at least 5 or 6 more trees up here when we kind of incorporate that next row. So let's kind of talk about that a little bit and why we're wanting to actually expand this. There's a lot of different reasons why you might want to have more and more fruit trees. Part of it could just be that it's one of those things that you want to have yet another variety. And one really cool aspect about that is if you learn to graft, then you truly can expand the varieties that you have without a huge footprint. So if you don't have the acreage like we do, and you maybe only have 1/4 of an acre or even less, you could have a pretty diverse backyard depending on how you think through, plan, and organize that backyard fruit forest. So I would strongly encourage you, just think forward. That's usually the #1 mistake, is people just not thinking forward and planning and doing some research on the specific varieties that do well in their location and area, microclimate, etc. What we're looking at doing here is having additional varieties so that in the future we'll have plenty of fruit that we can possibly sell, possibly make into more products, or that we might just be able to gift to other people. You also never know when one year something might produce really, really well, and another year you might have a pretty limited amount of fruit because of weather, pest, damage, disease, etc. So thinking about it from that perspective too can be a big impact. Thinking through all this, we've had a great opportunity. We've been kind of looking at doing something the last couple of years, and this seems to be the year based off of a couple of different things. What in the world are you doing, and how is this going to be impacting you guys' orchard? Well, thinking about the amount of space that you have, we're going to work on putting this next row in, and these are going to be a majority of apples, we think. I say we think because the package is coming in today, and we're looking forward to seeing exactly what we got, because we actually got a grab bag pack of 12 fruit trees from Cummings Nursery. You might ask, why in the world would you do that? Well, for one thing, I think it's really cool for us to be able to just document opportunities that are out there. Another thing can be, it's just the excitement of being able to kind of buy something and it's just a surprise. That can also be really bad, because we could get varieties that absolutely don't do well here. And if that happens, it is what it is. Maybe we can sell scions or work on something else from that perspective. But they have a great reputation of having some really, really cool heirloom type varieties, or things that you haven't seen ever at a box store, or working towards getting some unique varieties on your place. So I would encourage you to check them out. I'll link them down below, and once the box gets here, we'll have that discussion of exactly what we've got to plant. With the varieties that we're getting from Cummings, they are all bare root. That can be really, really good depending on what time of year, because you can get a lot of really, really cool varieties from all over the place via shipping and things. As long as you get them in the ground before they start to wake up, most of the time you're going to have pretty good production. You might remember in the past we had a couple bare root trees that we got from Ison's. We had that Tanashi persimmon, as well as that black ruby plum, and both of those have done absolutely excellent. I will say that we did get those a little bit earlier in the season last year, so hopefully with this being a little bit later, we'll still be okay. In reality, we always encourage you want to try and plant February, March, maybe through mid-April, but in reality, sometimes you just have to wait on those opportunities. Those opportunities can be presented themselves in a couple of different ways, so we're going to talk about those. If you wait, things might actually go on sale. This can be good, but you also kind of have a little bit of a risk. If you're really pushing against the limits of when it's good to plant in your area, then you might have a problem being able to get those plants in the ground, planted, and thriving. Or you could have to truly water them quite heavily. I will say, in the amount of time that these trees have been in transit, as well as several other scions that we've ordered in the last couple of weeks, the weather has been almost perfect. We've had a couple of warmer days, but for the most part, compared to what it's traditionally like here in upstate South Carolina this time of year, we can truly have some blazing heat. So it's been kind of overcast, we've had some rain, so things have really, really worked out well. Another thing in regards to those opportunities and being able to wait is you truly can kind of diversify what you get and not necessarily have everything jam-packed into a certain amount of time. However, you do need to plan. If you don't plan ahead of time, then you're going to end up having some issues. This weekend isn't exactly the greatest time for us because we've got a couple of different things going on from a family perspective, as we've had the last couple of weekends. But what we're going to do is make it work and try our best to get things done and prepped as much as possible. So let's talk about what we're going to do to try and prep for these trees that should be here today. Number one, you want to think through your location. So right here we've got an Anna apple, which we've talked about multiple times here on the channel. We're probably a little bit further north than this apple really likes to be. You also might notice this right here. That is cedar apple rust, and we have slowly been taking out the cedar trees here on our property to try and eliminate that, but you also can spray for cedar apple rust. Golden Dorset and Anna apple are supposedly not too prone to that, but I've also heard of people saying that their Golden Dorset has certainly been hammered by cedar apple rust. Well, this year, this tree itself has grown probably the best out of any time I can notice in 1 year, and I think part of that could just be because we pruned it, and we've also tried to work towards amending the soil some and working towards that, putting some compost around these trees and also trying to mulch some. That's something we're going to continually be trying to work on. I can't say we've done that with every tree, but at least on some, we've tried our best to have a pretty decent mulch ring. Again, you do not want a volcano up around the trunk of the tree. When you're thinking location, you might be thinking, all right, well, how in the world are we going to incorporate this? You said we've got how many trees coming? And in reality, there's 12 trees coming. Do we have enough space for that? Not exactly. So some of these might end up getting potted. That does give us the diversity to be able to kind of pick and choose which of these trees we want to put where, depending on what rootstock they come with, etc. I'm really thinking about this from some of the things that have been recollected over the last couple of months or years with a couple of buddies of mine when we kind of started pulling out those old baseball cards that we collected back in the 90s. Yes, the junk wax era, late 80s, early 90s. Might not have necessarily been the best time to collect baseball cards or sports cards in general, but depending on what you got, man, you really might be sitting on somewhat of a gold mine on a couple of those cards. So when you're thinking about these grab bags, I'm thinking about it from that perspective and just the excitement of being able to get something a little bit different. So what we're going to do is we're going to space off of where our Anna and Golden Dorset apples are. We're going to space these trees back onto the fence line here, and we're also going to stagger them so that basically they're kind of in a diamond pattern. Then what we're going to do, we had one of our, I believe it was a Golden Dorset, pass away last year. What we're going to do is, I think I'm going to measure off. I might be able to fit 2 in the place of 1, not in the same hole like they do a lot of time on Dave Wilson, although you could certainly do that depending on the variety. What we're going to do is actually kind of space those where they'll be a little bit tighter spacing depending on what kind of rootstock they have. If these are kind of traditional standard height or size trees, we might not necessarily be able to do that, but we're kind of thinking forward on what we'll do or won't do there. But certainly the ones down this tree line, we'll be able to get them in. So let's get to work on that and measuring out everything and making sure where we want to put these trees and the amount of spacing we have. And then we can work on deciding exactly which tree one we want to put where. And hopefully it'll probably be blazing hot summertime before we actually get to clearing out some of these trees back here. Y'all know how it is. You always end up planning some of that yard work when it's hot outside. It just always happens no matter what you plan or do. So eventually in the next year, we'll probably get some of these trees moved out, but I know at least with some of these limbs on this big pine right here, you can see how it is growing right out from the overhanging, honestly, that Anna apple where we're just standing beside a minute ago. So we certainly want to work on continually clearing that out. We've already done that some up through here, but we want to continue to work on it. It's just something, there's always other projects going on, and that will just have to be on the list. All right, for now, let's measure these out and see exactly where we want to put everything. All right guys, so where I'm going to put the camera is just up from the grafted apple that we got out of where our chicken pen was, and we grafted all of that last year. You can check out that video up here. Things are going really, really well for that. It does look like a couple of those do have some cedar apple rust, but we'll work on that later on. For now, what we want to do is just think about spacing, and you might not be able to see specifically, but this is kind of in a triangle pattern already. So we've got an Anna here and a Golden Dorset right over there. So it's spaced like this, so when that sun comes up, it does give a little bit of area for it to get some more sun. The only thing that's really blocking sun back behind you there is a crepe myrtle. It's probably at about its max height. It does provide some shade, but I will say that during the winter time, that sun comes around this way. So that sun is truly keeping these or giving that additional sun later in the year, when we're needing some of that to maybe help ripen some of these depending on when your ripening date is. And again, that can also vary based off of your zone, area, microclimate, shading, etc. That's why we're talking about it here. What I'm going to do now is kind of just think through exactly where we want to go with these. You'll kind of see me zigzagging back and forth, kind of seeing where exactly all this is going to go. I'm learning. At the same time, you guys are learning a little bit as well. As I mentioned multiple times, please don't let me come across as knowing every single thing. Do your own research, but don't just take one thing you've heard on the internet as fact. We try our best to give you the best amount of info, but we learn something new each and every day, and a lot of it is researching before we do some of these projects. So here we go. Alright guys, so we've got, I think, 6 locations spotted that we can put things. So we're going to put one up here by the grafted tree, and we might put some more in between the grafted tree and the crepe myrtle. I think y'all can see that. Yeah, so between this one and that one there. So I think we can put more in there if we want to, but what I really would like to do is see exactly what we get. I'm going to get these 6 holes dug. That'll give us about half already ready and primed for planting. When we get these trees in, what we can do, and what you always want to do, number one, is you want to make sure that you are going to soak them in water. I've heard anything from an hour to 24 hours. Make it work for what works for you. I wouldn't go really over 24 by much if you did. Number one is you want to make sure that you are going to soak them in water. I've heard anything from an hour to 24 hours. Make it work for what works for you. I wouldn't go really over 24 by much if you did. So we're going to go ahead and dig these holes and see exactly what we can come up with, and then once those trees come in, we'll certainly do an unboxing amidst all of that and having those discussions about each of these varieties, because we're going to learn something new. It's going to be almost like, again, opening up those packs of junk wax era baseball cards that maybe you had 20, 30 years ago. And then we'll decide what we want to put in the ground, at least half of those. Out of that, the other half, we've got a couple of different decisions to make. Here we go dig some holes. I know y'all have seen plenty of videos of us digging holes. Note to self, if you're gonna dig holes from, I would say, February until about right now, which is early May, is the time to dig holes in the South, especially if you're dealing with that red clay, because things have been raining and the soil is soft and it's really not bad to dig. If you wait until July or August, number one, your bare root trees are gonna not make it. But number two, you're gonna be sweating literally to the oldies, because if you're anything like me, at that point, it's gonna be super hot outside. You're trying to juggle what you can do, what you can't do. Is it too late to do anything or not? Just another side note, if you do end up purchasing something because you waited and found it on sale and it was in a pot, it was a potted tree, you literally can plant that anytime as long as the ground is not frozen solid, at least in our area. I would encourage you to try and do planting from fall, so I would say probably October through the end of April. End of May is okay, but much later than that, you can still do it, but you're definitely gonna have to water them. But you also gotta think through juggling how are you gonna keep these plants alive in a pot. It's not as simple as you're just gonna kind of keep an eye on it, water it when you think about it, etc. You really gotta stay on top of it, especially potted plants. They kind of need a shaded area almost, even if they're calling for full sun, because they're gonna bake and you're gonna have to water them 2 or 3 times a day unless you've got some kind of sprinkler system set up for most of them. Enough of me talking, guys. Let's go dig a hole. Two down, number 3. Number 4. Number 5. Whew. Boy. Alright guys, we got 6 done. It's early May. Can't imagine what in the world this would be like if it was July. So for now, I think we'll be good. Let's see exactly what this shipment brings us. Looking forward to it. As we always say here at the end of almost every video, thanks so much for watching this far along. Hopefully you've learned something new today. If you haven't already, please drop a comment down below. It really helps other people they might have the same questions, that kind of thing, and we can kind of have a dialogue back and forth, and it really kind of helps promote it to other people when we have multiple people all interacting together. It really does build some of that community. Also, if you haven't subscribed to our channel, I would encourage you to do that. I know I always end up plugging it at the end of the video, and I probably should say that throughout the video in different ways, but it makes a big difference. Probably about 80% of our viewership are not subscribers. So I would encourage you to subscribe so that we can continue to grow that footprint and making sure that you're able to see our videos. Speaking of that, whenever you do subscribe, if you don't click that little bell down there, we always like to say you need to click that bell like. That's right, Mike Tyson did in the 1980s. Seemed that he hit that bell a whole lot of times and was won a lot of different fights back in the day. Don't know why I say it, I just think that it's funny, and my kids, when I first started YouTube, thought that that was hilarious, so we keep saying it. But if you hit that little bell down there, then it should notify you, if you click all, of every video that we put out. This time of year, we have enough content that we're trying to put out at least one full-length regular YouTube long format video, but we've also been trying to knock out some shorts, just doing updates on other things that we've done already, and kind of updating those videos, or maybe we're kind of a little bit of ahead on those shorts, and you'll see that full-length video in a little bit later format or time. So I would encourage you, definitely do that, and please share it with other folks. If you share it through Facebook, Instagram, X, or whatever your social media preference, other people find out about it. We certainly appreciate each and every one of y'all, and hope that you have a wonderful and blessed day. We'll see you next week. You might be thinking, other than this needs to go, what in the world? What in